the 5,600 and odd libraries, to be very precise, 5623 GP, Gram Panchayat libraries, were transferred to the Rural Development Panchayat Raj Department as an exercise in further decentralization, so that they're no longer vertically managed, but they're managed. 2020, COVID broke out. And like the rest of India, we had school and college closures. At the time of the COVID pandemic, I think two things happened together, and this is why my interest is always in rural public libraries, which are managed by rural communities through their elected bodies. During the COVID pandemic, we saw that Gram Panchayats in rural Karnataka came to the forefront in the effective science-based awareness creation, dissemination, and effective COVID management. Helping to set up, taking the initiative to set up institutional quarantine centers, helping with livelihood. MG Narega person days generated in the COVID years was 16 crore person days, which is a record for Karnataka. And a study by Dr. Vijay Rao and others of the World Bank actually showed that during COVID, the elected local bodies in Karnataka generated 15% more person days than administrator-driven panchayats, which shows the responsiveness of local governance. This responsiveness is what led us to think that in the time of school and college closures, what if we revive the public libraries, which are in the rural local bodies' control, and make them safe spaces for rural children and young people to study at a time when schools and colleges are closed, but they need to, there was this huge anxiety about learning. How do we study? How do we catch up? How do we write our exams? How do we, stay with our reading skills and our math skills and so on? So this is something that we started on the 1st of November 2020. We started a program called Odwa Belaku, the Fire of Reading, which was just a program aimed with 4 very simple, because there was no time to do a pilot, there was no, it was in the middle of the pandemic. We had to really do things that would work. We did see that in Karnataka there were primary school teachers in North Karnataka who started neighborhood schools, neighborhood learning centers, even while schools were closed. With the help of the panchayat, they started neighborhood learning centers by coming and visiting and helping young children to stay connected with learning. This inspired us to start Odwa Belaku, which is 4 principles. One is that every rural library in the panchayat's control will have a children's section. Second, that all rural children up to the age of 18 years, from 6 to 18 years, will get free membership. There was a small, tiny little deposit, refundable deposit, but we did not want even that deposit to be a hurdle for any child. The third was that, and the Gram Panchayat would of course bear the cost of the deposit. That was how we funded it. The third was that every rural library will have not only books, but it will also have computers, at least 2 computers with internet, UPS and so on. Which meant, obviously, that the library would have to have a building, it would have to have electricity. You'd be surprised, some rural libraries were still functioning out of corners of panchayat buildings and or corners of little dilapidated spaces, functioning out of trunks and so on, and they were dormant, so we needed to really revive them. And the fourth was that we would revive the library as a child-friendly and colorful and vibrant space. This is all. These are just the 4 things. The other thing, important thing about this, I should also add that we said we will collect books through donations. So the Bharat Gyan Vigyan Samiti, BGVS, which works closely with us, among many such organizations, suggested that we should have a program called Pustaka Jolige, which is really a bag of books. In the middle of COVID, we didn't want to do a massive procession to convert this into a public program, but there would be a small little group walking from house to house saying, we'll give you, we are coming to your doorstep, give us a book. In Kannada, I know that some of our Karnataka members are here, ನಾನು ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಹೇಳ್ತೀನಿ, ನಾವು ನಿಮ್ಮ ಮನೆ ಬಾಗಿಲಿಗೆ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಒಂದು ಪುಸ್ತಕ ನಮ್ಮ ಜೋಳಿಗೆ ಇದೆ, ನೆನಪಿದೆಯಲ್ಲ? So we said, we are coming to your doorstep, please give us just 1 book for our bag. And this is how a state-driven program made efforts in the middle of a pandemic to actually reach its message to every house. It was a beautiful thing because in places like Koppal, Gangavati, we think that, of course, there were massive civil society response was massive. Foundations like Azim Premji Foundation generously donated books for 5,000 libraries, Pratham Books, others. Nimhans campus organized a collection and organized 15 cartons of books which came. All this happened during the COVID pandemic. St. Joseph's opened their auditorium. It was an auditorium as big as this for us to collect all the books, and there were young people from Manipur and other places who were studying in Bangalore, whose colleges were closed. They came and volunteered to sort the books. So it was amazing. But what was even more amazing was the response was not just in Bangalore. Even in a faraway place like Gangavati Taluk in Koppal, the Pustaka Jolige collected 8,000 books by going house to house. Some of the villages would greet the little procession which walked with, with social protection and mask and all that in the middle of COVID. They would greet them with a band set. Okay, so this is the response in rural Karnataka and will be the response anywhere in rural India. And this is something that should hearten us and encourage us, because this is the reality. People want books, people want to read. Reading is a very deep human urge, and that's why no amount of computers, Kindles, AI, nothing will come in the way between the human urge to read and to know and to understand the world through fiction or through words or through non-fiction, whatever, but to know more. So that's a tremendous human urge which gave us this thing. So what started in November 2020 has now grown. We found that libraries were functioning only for 4 hours. We made some administrative changes. We said they will function on Saturdays and Sundays. They will have an off day on Mondays and alternate Tuesdays. We said that they will function for 6 hours. We were the only department which actually increased the wages of librarians in the middle of COVID. Again, thereafter, we were able to increase the wages, and now librarians in Karnataka get minimum wages and libraries function for 8 hours. Libraries have managed to enroll 50 lakh children in Karnataka in the last 3 years, which is a tremendous thing. This is the work of libraries, it's the work of communities, it's the work of panchayats, it's the work of department officials, but most of all, it's the work of children who didn't have access to books and now find that there are picture books in the libraries, there are chessboards and so on. So why am I talking about libraries as centers for information, interaction and inclusion? As Professor Chandrasekhar said, libraries are not merely repositories of books. Often when I speak to some of my friends in Bangalore, they still think that libraries are, places where you go once in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, you check out 2 books, you return 2 books and you check out 2 books. That's not the case for the rural public library. The rural public library is a center for information. People come to know what's going on. It's a center for information even at the panchayat level, because the panchayat makes action plans, has budgets, has funds which can make a difference in people's lives. Children can go to the library and find out when is the next Bal Sabha, Makkal Gram Sabha, where they can raise a question that there's an electricity wire. This actually happened. There's an electricity wire, live wire, which is fallen on the football field or the playground, the school playground, and we're not able to play over there. It's not safe. We need to. So these are the kinds of ways in which information at the local level. Ever since we put computers in the libraries, we find that every election there are senior citizens sitting and watching the counting happening and the results in the libraries, which is very heartening. We have Telegram groups and WhatsApp groups across the state, so we see this happening. Interaction. We've put chessboards in the libraries, and the moment we put chessboards, because we found Tamil Nadu was having a chess competition, and we said we also want to put chessboards in our libraries. Moment we put chessboard, the community did not say, oh, library should be a quiet space, why should we put chessboards? They took it as a natural extension and growth of the library. I find in a small, tiny library in Kodagu, on the border of Nagarholi forest, I found I went to the library and I found a bunch of kids watching a chess game. I said, who are the 2 champions playing the game? So there was a little tribal boy in a government school uniform, and there was a young Muslim boy in a private school uniform, and both of them come every day and play in the evenings. This again was very heartening. We're blurring the boundaries. In Bangalore, I would be hard pressed to find places where children going to government schools and private schools actually play together on a daily basis like this. We've almost created boundaries that separate the gated lives of people who access private institutions of learning and those who access the public school. So this again was beautiful. We found elderly people, people with disabilities, playing with young people, teaching them the rules of the game, intergenerational spaces, and therefore libraries are spaces for interaction, for the community to come together. The very first Indian Library Congress that I attended, Kannur Congress, 3 of our librarians from Karnataka also attended. I remember a librarian called Savitri. I spoke to them when I'd come to Kannur, and while I was waiting for my session to start, I was talking to them and telling them, this was 2.5 years ago. So I was telling them that, we need to make our libraries inclusive even for people with disabilities. We need to do something. So I said, we'll figure out ways, we'll get devices, assistive devices, and so on. By the time I'd come back and we'd started working out a plan for assistive devices, digital voice assistants, braille books, things like that. Savitri from Mandekolu, a small library in Dakshin Kannada, had already gone to visit families in her panchayat, families whose young people had been affected with endosulfan, which had caused disability. She had invited them to come to the library, and she had organized activities for them, even with a little smiley ball, those yellow balls, to sit in the library. So here was a very deep understanding of the library as an inclusive space, that you can go beyond braille books, you can go beyond digital voice assistants, you can go beyond the use of the library as a space for people to read, people with disabilities to read. It can even just be a safe space for them to come and get some respite. I thought that was a very, very sophisticated and beautiful understanding of the library as an inclusive space. Today we understand libraries as inclusive spaces, both for people with disabilities. We're putting digital voice assistants in 200 libraries. We hope to expand it. We've put braille books. We've also put readers, devices which plug in with a USB and they can scan text and read even if it's not converted to braille or even if the child doesn't know braille. So these are assistive devices. These help young people to read. They also help, we've also got devices in 2,000 libraries, which we're expanding to 6,000, which are chessboards, checkerboards, and snakes and ladders, which are tactile, with tactile surfaces. When we launched this, the program is called Darshini, when we launched this, a blind Panchayat Development Officer called Prashant, who's a faculty at our state institute, again gave a very beautiful understanding and sophisticated understanding of inclusion. He said, a child who's able and a child who's visually impaired can play this game together, and you can actually blur these boundaries. Also, the importance of snakes and ladders in every child's life, both in a child's life who has a disability and in a child's life who doesn't have a disability, is that it teaches them that even if you fall down, there are ways that you can roll the dice and you can actually move forward. So these are the ways in which our Karnataka libraries are moving forward. We have seen grandmothers, grandfathers coming with the children and learning to read and write from the children. We've also started programs of actually teaching Panchayat members who are not able to read and write. We have slowly started teaching them actual literacy. So these are some of the things that we're trying to do. We found, I remember a story that a literacy activist once told me, that Shivram Karantji, when they went to visit him, they asked him to create readers for people who had just learned to read and write. At first he was startled. He said, how will people who have just learned to read and write, how will they understand my books? So then they said, but they also have a right to read your books. Immediately, that night itself, he wrote 4 drafts of 4 stories which were almost like poems, which were meant for the neoliterate reader, adult reader. And these stories were illustrated with K.K. Hebar's illustrations. These were published by UNESCO for a project in Mysore. They were later republished for the Dakshin Kannada literacy campaign. They were again republished when I took up a statewide literacy campaign as a young officer. And now we have requested one of our partner organizations. We have multiple partner organizations, NGOs who are coming to us, working with us on non-financial basis, and we welcome every partner organization. They are planning to publish these again for us, print them again for us, and give it to us. Libraries are a space for every kind of inclusion. They are a space, and this inclusion is important because they, the formal education system can often be a gatekeeper for knowledge. And because of rote learning, because of verbal methods of learning, because of excessive reliance on memory, because of a dependence on the child being a second generation or a third generation from a third generation literate family. My own family, both my grandmothers could not complete school, but they ensured that all their children studied. My mother was the first graduate in her family. Today in our generation, just in 2 generations, we have civil servants, we have PhDs, MBAs and so on. So the power of education, if we want to democratize, we have to supplement the formal education system with open library spaces, public library spaces, which are community spaces, which allow for self-directed learning, critical thinking, inquiry, creativity, innovation, and so on. So these are some of the things that we're trying. And a final word about how we're actually doing this. We recognize that many, many children who come to our libraries, most of the children may be first generation learners. Their parents may be working at in physical labor, MG work sites, and so on. We allow these children, we welcome them, and encourage them to borrow books. We encourage them to borrow picture books, bring it back, and so on. We not only do that, we conduct library activities. So every month there is an activity around reading, around writing, and reflection and narration. So on the pustaka odidre, if they read a book, they will reflect on it. Adar ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಯೋಚನೆ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. They will reflect and they can write their reflection in words if they want, they can draw it if they want, or if they don't want, they don't have to do it. I think that's the key, that this doesn't happen in a school system. This is where they are encouraged to, freely reflect on the work that they're doing. We also have read alouds. So reading is not only a private activity in the libraries, that's definitely there, but it's also a shared activity. And read alouds are a way, interactive way in the story circle for children to actually, we started these read alouds with the help of partners like Adhyayan Foundation, Azim Premji Foundation, and multiple other organizations. But now the children form their own story circles and they read these stories and they discuss these. These are some of the things that we have found. Happy to say that this year we are starting, we've already got the books, we've got the furniture, and now we're ordering computers. We are now starting 6,599 village level libraries, so that children and their parents or grandparents don't have to walk 4 kilometers, 5 kilometers in order to come to the library. The library will be in their village itself. We are making these efforts with a view to actually open up learning for all. Thank you so much.